All right, welcome back to our study of the Patriarchs, rediscovering the faith of our fathers, hallelujah, the pillars of our faith. So today we're going to be talking about Lamech, hallelujah. So this is going to be concerning Lamech, and just so that no one gets confused, we're talking about Lamech, who is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ninth from Adam. Hallelujah. So this is the Lamech, because there's two Lamechs, in case you didn't know. There's also a Lamech in the genealogy of Cain. We're not talking about that Lamech. That was Cain's son. No, we're talking about Methuselah's son. So first and foremost, I just want to set the record straight as to which Lamech we're talking about. So we're talking about the Lamech that's in the lineage of Adam, not in Cain. All right. Now, this is taken from the Dead Sea Scrolls 1Q 20, columns 0 through 5. Now, the testament of Lamech is found in 1Q 20, which is commonly called the Genesis Apocryphon. And Apocryphon, which we learned last week, speaks to something that's hidden or secret. So we're talking about the hidden or secret or private Genesis. This is the part, the stuff that they didn't care for us to know, that they kept from us. Now, much of it coincides with the book of Enoch, which they also deemed was spurious until the Dead Sea Scrolls proved it not to be. In fact, Enoch essentially repeat the same account in this testament, which is found in chapters 106 through 107, the Ethiopic book of Enoch, also reproduced here. We're going to take a look at that. Now, one thing I want you to keep in mind while we go through these patriarchal works is that the powers that existed then and now went or go through great lengths to keep these writings from you. You have to understand that. Even today, they're still deterring folks by stating that the writings are written by a bunch of radical crazies called the Essenes. And to be honest with you, I brought into that at first. But once you go through the Dead Sea Scrolls, you find not one mention. You'll find not one mention to an Essene whatsoever. None. And so it just really, boggles my mind, because when it first came out, I was so excited, about this work, about the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I read through them, and all the quote-unquote scholars and professionals and, those who supposed to know were saying that they were written by the Essenes. Yet when you read through the literature, you see absolutely nothing concerning an Essene. The word isn't even mentioned in over 1,000 scrolls. The word is not even mentioned. But what is mentioned are the priests of Zadok, the holy ones. There's several, dozens if not hundreds of references to the holy priesthood, which leads anyone who actually reads through them to the conclusion that, they were written by the priesthood, by the Zadokite priests. There's many references that even speak of them as being Zadokite priests, so it's kind of hard not to miss that. So when I consider that, and I consider, the precursor that they put these works out under, that they were written by a bunch of radical zealots called Essenes, it makes me wonder. You know, and this is in today's time. You know, and so you know, now when we look back in the past history, we can kind of see, you know, the dynamics of society and you know, maybe can give them a pass on why they would do that. But the question of today is why? Why would you do that today? You know, and then it starts to make you wonder, like, well, maybe the dynamic of society, you know, wasn't the only reason that they were covered up to begin with. Maybe it's something that's contained therein. And what's even more mind-boggling is that there were others that went through even greater lengths to make certain they were preserved. And that's really crazy. You know, I want you to take a good look at this, because this is where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. Now, I want you to take notice of something very important. And that is, there are no pathways to these caves. There are no ledges. The little shepherd boy risked his life and limb to get up there. But even more importantly, people risked life and limb to put them there. They went through great lengths to make certain that these works would be preserved, to the point of risking life and limb to hide them. In areas in which they figured no one would possibly, you know, just arbitrarily venture off into. And you know what? They were absolutely right for over 2,000 years. They laid there for approximately 2,000 years or more. You know, and the thing is, you know, even the young boy, the young shepherd boy, you know, who was throwing rocks and said threw a rock up in there and heard something break, even still, imagine if that was you. If you were down here, see my red dot? If you were down here and you're throwing rocks up in one of these caves and you hear something break, are you going to risk your life and limb to get up there? There's no steps here. You see how smooth that rock is? Unless you're a billy goat, you're going to have a very difficult time getting into one of these caves. Amen? You know, I want you to see this, and I want you to imagine this, because this is really crucial information that really doesn't get the proper, you know, credence, if you ask me. You know, this is miraculous in and of itself that we have these works. You know, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say the only reason that we have them, it's not because of that little shepherd boy, it's because of Yah. Because when you look at the timing in which they were discovered, it aligns right with the timing when Israel was becoming a state. You cannot convince me, no matter how hard you try, that that's coincidence. Because I know too much about my El to believe otherwise. Amen. You know, so I just want to put this on the table, and I want this to sink in, and I want you to think about this, because, you know, these writings should have changed the world. They really should have changed the world, but the only reason that they did not, and why do I say they should have changed the world? Because out of approximately 6.7 billion people, over a third of them claim to be Christian, and another large percentage is adheres to Judaism, which all of them are the same scriptures, and even those who are of Islam still have the same stories in their scriptures. So it should have changed the world, but it didn't, because they touted them as being, you know, writings of some Essenes, some estranged religious zealots, you know, that and downplayed it, and the ministers of Elohim. didn't take the proper interest in it and bring it to the people. Well, today, here and now, that changes. We're gonna learn what some of these things have to say. So we're gonna get into the book of Lamech. Now, I just wanted to throw that out there because I don't think, like I said, I don't think it gets its just due. So now, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the scrolls are in columns. Now, this is the Genesis Apocryphon, and actually, a great portion of it was actually missing. So the beginning is not there, and the end is not there. But we have what we have, amen? And this is column 0, okay? They started off with column 0. So can I have my first reader read column 0?
And all of us so in each way we may consent in this adulterous act, all that you will amplify anger, and it will be unstoppable. For who is there who, in the heat of anger, the simple, the humble, and the lowly shake and tremble? We are now imprisoned, to cease from your anger, by your anger, since we will leave the house of the great Holy One. Now your hand is ready to strike and to destroy all, because he ceased speaking when we were imprisoned. A fire that has appeared before the Adonai of heaven and attacking them from behind. And no longer seek grace and mercy from the Adonai of eternity before the Adonai of eternity.
Hallelujah. That was awesome, wasn't it? Each of these are different lines, and where you see the 3 dots, that's where it cuts off. So it started off, and all of us from, and then, so that was a fragment, that was a line, and then it picked up, so in each way we may consent in his adulterous act, and then it cut off, and then there was another line, all that you will, or it was maybe, a gap in betwixt it, and so on and so forth, But what we're going to do is we're going to delve into this a little bit more and see what we can extract from it. All right, so one of the statements is, so in each way we may consent in this adulterous act. Now, from this fragment, in addition to the overall content of Lamech, it is apparent that it is referencing the watchers and their transgressions. Hence, understanding who the watchers are is paramount to comprehending the scroll as a whole. They're spoken of in both our canon as well as other Dead Sea Scrolls. And so I know that many people aren't familiar with the watchers. Right. They're not familiar with this story. So I'm going to try to bring it about because, as we go through these Dead Sea Scrolls, you're going to see many references to them. Many references to a certain occurrence that happened upon the earth. Now, like I say, they're spoken of in both our canon as well as the Dead Sea Scrolls, but without this other information, it's hard to make heads or tail of it, even when we see it in our canon, and our canon is our measuring stick, right? So we're going to continue to use that measuring stick, to see if the Dead Sea Scrolls measure up, so to speak. Amen? All right? So we're not just taking, anything at face value just all together, but it's from comprising, putting all the information together and then comprising, what we learned from it. Amen? Okay, so Genesis 6, 1-4, it says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters... now that I injured the kid, let me continue. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And Yahuwah said, my Ruach shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of Elohim came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, and men of renown. Now, me personally, I'm beginning to formulate an opinion concerning this this passage, and the opinion that I began to start formulating is that there's a deliberate plot or scheme to keep the truth of this matter from us.
Right.
And I say that because it's at every turn it seems to be covered up, and this many scholars will say that these sons of Elohim were just ordinary men that saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all of whom they chose. And my answer to that is, what ordinary man gets with an ordinary woman and makes a giant?
Right.
And if that was the case, then what's the sense of making this distinction here? This is what men and women were made to do. So what's the sense of making the distinction? Verse 4 says there were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of Elohim came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same being mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Now, it's clear that the result of this union of these sons of Elohim and daughters of men was something that was unusual. That's obvious, is it not? They became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. What does that mean? That they were of old. What does that mean? It means something, right?
Yes, it does.
So it's obvious that something out of the ordinary happened. But you'll have, many people will tell you, no, wasn't nothing out of the ordinary. Man just got with a woman and this is what happened. No. Now, the book of Jubilees also speak of these sons or angels of Elohim. We're going to look into the history of these beings, for they seem to be riddled throughout the Dead Sea Scrolls. Hence, when you run into them again, you'll understand. And when you run into them again in different references that's also riddled throughout our canon, our measuring stick, you'll also understand what it means. Amen?
Amen.
Okay, so Jubilees 4:15. It says, in the second week of the 10th Jubilee, Mahalael took unto him to wife Dinah, the daughter of Barachiel, the daughter of his father's brother, and she bare him a son in the 3rd week, in the 6th year, and he called his name Yared. For in his days the angels of Yahuwah, see, it doesn't use the sons of Elohim here. Now it's getting to the nitty gritty. It calls them angels. Even though when you go through Scripture, our canon, if you would, when you go through our canon, never any place in our canon, in our measuring stick, does sons of God ever refer to a regular man. Never. Always to spiritual beings. Always. So again, I don't know how those who came up with that conclusion that they were just regular men, or that they were the sons of Cain, or something to that effect. I don't see where they get that from. Now, it says, for in his days the angels of Yahweh descended on the earth, those who are named the Watchers. Okay? So these angels of Yahuwah, they're called the Watchers. That they should instruct the children of men, and that they should do judgment and uprightness on the earth. So hereby we learn that these angels were named the Watchers. Yeah, and you have to say it like that. The Watchers. And their job was or is to instruct the children of men in judgment and uprightness on the earth. This is their job. So So right now, we done learned something huge already, that there are angels on the earth, and their job is to instruct us in judgment and uprightness on the earth. That's awesome in and of itself, is it not? Now, with this in mind, consider the following passages from our canon, our measuring stick, which also mentions these watchers. Because we're not just going to take this at face value. We're going to put it up against the measuring stick. Is there anything that bears witness to this in our measuring stick? And absolutely, there is. Yirmiyahu 4:16 and 17. It says, make ye mention to the nations. Behold, publish against Jerusalem that watchers come from a far country and give out their voice against the cities of Yahudah. As keepers of a field are they against her round about, because she hath been rebellious against me, saith Yahuwah. Now remember their job, that they should instruct the children of men and that they should do judgment. Can you not see that they are coming here to Jerusalem in Jeremiah 4:16 and 17 for judgment? Because she have been rebellious against me, saith Yahuwah. Can you see that?
Yes.
I pray everyone can see that they were coming for judgment. Because of judgment. You know, also Daniel chapter 4, verses 13 through 17. It says, I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher, there we go, and an holy one. You know, so we see a watcher, a holy one. We know they're angels. We know what their job is. And it says, came down from heaven. A watcher and an holy one came down from heaven. He cried aloud and said thus, hew down the tree and cut off his branches, shake off his leaves and scatter his fruit. Let the beasts get away from under it and the fowls from his branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of his roots in the earth, even with a brand of iron and brass, in the tender grass of the field. Let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beast in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. This matter is by decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones. Why? To the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and give it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basis of men. So again, we see these watchers doing their job, do we not? We see them doing their job. Here it is. They're going to bring this to pass to the intent that the living may know. You know, and that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men. And check this out, because it says he setteth up over it the kingdom of men. It's speaking about the basis of men. That's the lowest. That's not the best. That's not the best. That's basis. 2 different words. You know, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Yah still doing the same thing. He still set up the basis of men over the kingdoms of men. Does he not? Selah. Okay, now that we know the background of the watchers, who they are and what they're supposed to do, let's consider the above fragment. Because it said, so in each way we may consent in this adulterous act. You know, and I'm convinced that this is speaking about the watchers, you know, and they're consenting to do an adulterous act, okay? You know, and just so happens when we look in another Dead Sea Scroll, in the book of Enoch, we find something that aligns right with this. Let me have my next reader read Enoch chapter 6, verses 1 through 5, please. Light on?
Yes, I'm now testing. Yes. In those days, when the children of man had multiplied, it happened that there was born unto them handsome and beautiful daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw them and desired them. And they said to one another, come, let us choose wives for ourselves from among the daughters of man, and beget us children. And Simyas, being their leader, said unto them, I fear that perhaps you will not consent that this deed should be done, and I alone will become responsible for this great sin. So they all responded to him, let us all swear an oath and bind everyone among us by a curse, that to abandon this suggestion, that to do the deed. Then they all swore together and bound one another by the curse. And they were altogether 200, and they descended into Ardus, which is the summit of Hermon.
Hallelujah. Okay, so here it is. We see they're speaking in column 0, that they may consent in an adulterous act, and so here it is. We see that these watchers, they actually did consent to a deed that would be done, about choosing wives for themselves from among the daughters of men and beget them children. Now, can you see that this is not talking about ordinary men? Amen?
Yeah.
Everybody see that, right?
Yeah.
So let's throw that out. This is talking about the angels, the children of heaven. And, now, just so that we have a clear understanding, I'm going to ask someone to answer me, what would we call an angel today? Say again. Where does angels live? They live in heaven. Where's heaven? It is above. What do we call the heavens above? Space. Who said that? Amen. All right. So, what do we call people who come from space? See, sometimes you just got to change the vernacular so that you can see the true picture. Amen? I mean, am I making this up?
Right.
And if we're talking about children of heaven, and heaven is space, we're talking about children from outer space, are we not?
Yeah.
What do we call people from outer space?
Alien.
I'm not making this up, y'all. This is here. I just want you to understand it and see it clearly. Angel is a nice word. A lot of people don't like the word alien. Nevertheless, they both come from outer space. Amen?
Right. Unhuman.
Now, it says that they saw them and desired them.
Right.
Okay? And verse 3 said, I fear that perhaps you will not consent that this deed shall be done, and I alone will become responsible for this great sin. So here it is. We got the leader, Simyas. He didn't want to be the only one getting in trouble.
That's right.
All right? So they swore together and bound themselves by a curse. And it says, and they were all together 200. All right? So I just wanted to make that clear. Now, they agreed to go into this adulterous act. Now, the word adulterous is na'af in the Hebrew number 5003. It speaks to commit adultery, and it also means to apostatize, which means to abandon a previous loyalty. And that's what they were about to do. They were about to abandon their loyalty to Yahuwah. Amen? Everybody still with me?
Yes.
All right, so back to column 0. Now there's another fragment that says, now I'm not going fragment by fragment or line by line because, I couldn't find something to associate with each line. But for those that I could, that's what we're going over. Amen? Okay. All right, so it says, now we are now imprisoned. So they did this dastardly deed, and then they found themselves imprisoned. And now it's saying we are now in prison. So now they're speaking about them being imprisoned. Okay? Did these beings actually become imprisoned? That's the question. Well, Enoch 14, this is now Enoch is a different book than the Genesis Apocryphon. And so that's why I'm utilizing it to support, showing that it's bears witness elsewhere other than this particular book that we're reading, you know, that these things happen. Amen. And of course, I'm aligning it with our measuring stick, which is our canon. Amen. Okay, so Enoch 14:4-5. I wrote down your prayers. Now, this is actually Enoch speaking. I wrote down your prayers, so it appeared in visions, for your prayers will not be heard throughout all the days of eternity. See, this was a part of their punishment, that their prayers would not be heard all the days of eternity, and judgment is passed upon you. From now on, you will not be able to ascend into heaven unto all eternity. So these particular beings would never be able to go back into the heavens. From now on, you will not be able to ascend into the heaven unto all eternity, but you shall remain inside the earth, imprisoned all the days of eternity. Okay, so they're to remain imprisoned. Amen? You know, so we learned something about this something that transpired here upon the earth that seems to have been covered, all but covered up. You know, and they make you, you know, the powers that be, you know, society make you seem or feel foolish that you're talking about, you know, angels exist, that you're talking about giants once walked upon the earth. You know, but these things, you know, I don't know about you, but I believe Scripture over any man. You know, and these things are found in Scripture, and I believe them with all my heart. And there's much evidence to them. You know, like I've shown you guys, you know, an excerpt from President Lincoln, the 16th president of these United States. You know, and he's talking about the giants that was found. You know, it's his speech at Niagara Falls, and he's mentioning the giants that was found all over America. This was common knowledge at one point. I'm telling you, it's been covered up.
Yes.
Why? Why do they keep repeatedly covering up this truth? Now, it says we are now in prison. The watchers are now speaking of being in prison. But do our canon, do our measuring stick bear witness with such a thing? Now, we've seen it in Enoch, but what about our canon? It sure does. 2 Peter 2:4 says, if Elohim spared not the angels, it didn't call them men, did it? It says angels that sinned, but cast them down to H-E double hockey sticks and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. Does that bear witness? How about Jude 1:6? And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. See, they're reserved unto judgment. There's going to be a judgment time. There's going to be a judgment day. Amen? But one seemed to have been special, for he seemed to have his very own prison. And we read about him in Enoch 10. Enoch 10:4-5. It says, and secondly, Yahuwah said to Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot. Anybody recognize that name, Azazel? Yeah. That's in the Pentateuch, is it not? It's in Torah. Bind Azazel hand and foot and throw him into the darkness. And he made a hole in the desert, which was Dudael, and cast him there. Where is he at? In the desert. What is the lesson we just got finished going over? The wilderness experience. Where we go through the wilderness and we're tested and tried. Who you think is out there in the wilderness testing and trying, folks? Hello, somebody. Come on, somebody. Put the pieces together. Enoch 10:5, he threw on top of him rugged and sharp rocks, and he covered his face in order that he may not see light. Can't see light, can't see Yah, because Yah is light. Amen? Come on, somebody. Column 0. We're still dealing with them being in prison. Let me have my next reader read Enoch 10:6-10.
And in order that he may be sent into fire on the great day of judgment, and give light to the earth which the angels have corrupted. And he will proclaim life for the earth, that he is giving life to her. And all the children of the people will not perish through all the secrets of the angels, which they taught to their sons. And the whole earth has been corrupted by Azazel's teachings of his own actions, and write upon him all sin. And Gabriel Yahuwah said, proceed against the bastards and reprobates against the children of adultery, and destroy the children of adultery, and expel the children of the watchers from among the people, and send them against one another, so that they may be destroyed in the fight. For length of days have they not. They will beg you for everything for their fathers on behalf of themselves, because they hope to live an eternal life. They hope that each one of them will live a period of 500 years.
Hallelujah. Okay. Now, verse 8 said, in the whole earth, has been corrupted by Azazel's teaching of his own actions, and write upon him all sin. Can you not see that he's being held responsible for the destruction of the whole earth?
Yes. Right.
You know, he's being held responsible for the destruction of the whole earth. It's been attributed to him in particular, you know, that the whole earth had to be destroyed. He's the cause of the destruction of the earth. I pray you can see that. Enoch 10:11 through 15 continues on, and it says, unto Michael Yahuwah said, make known to Simyaza and the others who are with him, who fornicated with the women, that they will die together with them in all their defilement. And when they and all their children have battled with each other, and when they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them for 70 generations underneath the rocks of the ground until the day of their judgment and of their consummation, until the eternal judgment is concluded. In those days they will lead them into the bottom of the fire and in torment in the prison, where they will be locked up forever. And at the time when they will burn and die, those who collaborated with them will be bound together with them from henceforth unto the end of all generations, and destroy all the souls of pleasure and the children of the watchers, for they have done injustice to man. And so I pray that you can see, you know, that the rest of them also have been imprisoned, and they're put in someplace different, it appears to be. And it says, for how long? 70 generations. That's a long time, is it not?
Yeah.
But it does have an end. Selah. And we're talking about a long time ago. But 70 generations has a start and it has an end. And that's all I'm going to say about that right now. All right, so again, column 0. Moving on to another line. It says, now your hand is ready to strike. And then down from it, it was, and to destroy all. You know, and so this is speaking concerning Yah, you know, whose hand was ready to strike and to destroy all. Now, we see evidence of that in our measuring stick. We see evidence of that, you know, in our canon. Genesis 6:9 through 13. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. And Noah walked with Elohim. And Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before Elohim, and the earth was filled with violence. And Elohim looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And Elohim said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me. For the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Now, who's the them that's being spoken of? Even the offspring of these fallen angels. The offspring of the watchers. Now, something else I want to call to your attention. This is 2 Corinthians 13:1. It says, this is the 3rd time I am coming to you. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established. And this is based off of Torah. Okay? I want you to know and understand that. And I want you to know and understand that within all of our canonized scriptures of the Old Testament, in which the Yahudim still, they don't use the Brit Kadashah, right? All they use is the Tanakh. All they use is the Pentateuch, the prophets, and the writings. And so they don't have the New Testament. So for them, there is absolutely, I want you to call something to your attention, that there is not a second witness to this account. There's not a second witness in all of the Old Testament to what happened here in Genesis 6. If you take note, the references that I've been utilizing to support it has been coming from the Brit Kadashah, the New Testament writings. See, but Yah in Torah established this precept that every word be established by 2 or 3 witnesses. So where are the other witnesses to the Genesis account? I'm trying to tell you. They've been hiding stuff from us. They've been keeping stuff from us. They've been trying to cover a truth that needs to come out. And why does it need to come out in this day and time? Because those 70 generations, the clock is ticking.
Yes.
I don't think it's by coincidence that this information has been revealed in our day and time. But one thing I do know is that out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established, and there is not a second witness to the flood account in all of the Old Testament that we have canonized. That is not Yah's way. Enoch 10, 1 and 2. And then spoke the Most High, the great and Kodesh one. I just like the way that roll off my tongue. I'm going to say it again. And then spoke the Most High, the great and Kodesh one. And he sent Ashuriah to the son of Lamech, saying, tell him in my name, hide yourself, and reveal to him the end of what is coming, for the earth and everything will be destroyed. And the deluge is about to come upon all the earth, and all that is in it will be destroyed. Okay, so, remember, we're dealing with the line that spoke about now your hand is ready to strike and destroy all. And truly it was ready to strike, and it's going to destroy all with a deluge, that is with a great flood that will kill all flesh upon the earth. Amen? Everybody still with me? All right. We're going to move on. Column 0, because he ceased speaking when we were imprisoned. So now we're going to deal with this line, because he ceased speaking when we were in prison. And this is the Watchers, and they're talking about, Yah ceased speaking to them when they were in prison. And so, and the reason they're saying because is because they were speaking to Enoch, and they was trying to convince him to go and intercede on their behalf. Okay? And the reason he needed to intercede on their behalf is because Yah had ceased speaking when they were imprisoned. So, this is Enoch 14, 4 and 5. It says, I wrote down your prayers, so it appeared in visions, for your prayers will not be heard throughout all the days of eternity, and judgment is passed upon you. From now on, you will not be able to ascend into the heaven unto all eternity, but you shall remain inside the earth in prison all the days of eternity. So they can't go up to heaven and speak to him themselves, and he is not hearing them from the earth. And Enoch 13, 4 through 6, is very similar, or is that just what I just read? No, that was 14. Okay. So Enoch 13, 4 through 6, and then they begged me to write for them a memorial prayer in order that there may be for them a prayer of forgiveness, so that I may raise their memorial prayer unto Yahuwah of heaven. For as for themselves, from henceforth they will not be able to speak, nor will they raise their eyes unto heaven as a result of their sin, which have been condemned. And then I wrote down their memorial prayers and their petitions on behalf of the spirits and the deeds of each one of them, on account of the fact that they have prayed in order that there may be for them forgiveness of sin, and a length of days. You know, so some of them was repentful, but Yah wasn't hearing them.
Right.
Now, again, dealing with because he ceased speaking when we were in prison. Enoch 10, 11 through 15. And to Michael, Yahuwah said, make known to Semyaza and others who are with him, who fornicated with the women, that they will die together with him in their defilement. I read this, didn't I? Okay, we're going to keep it moving. Okay, the next line, witchcraft, sorcery, and divinations. Okay, now, this is speaking about the watchers again, and what they did was they taught men, they taught the women, you know, their wives that they took of humanity, they taught them witchcraft and sorcery and divinations. And they taught them all kind of secret things that Yah did not want man to know. Okay? And then take note down here, it says, you know, it speaks of their strong bond. You know, and I just embolden that because I just wanted to make reference that it's probably speaking to the bond that they made with a curse. You know, that they're all going to see this thing through. Okay, so Enoch 8, 3, and 4, concerning the witchcraft, sorcery, and divinations. It says, Masras taught incantation and the cutting of roots, and Amaros, the resolving of incantations, and Barakiel, astrology, and Kokarel, the knowledge of the signs, and Tamel taught the seeing of the stars, and Azdarel taught the course of the moon, as well as the deception of man. So you want to know how humanity got deceived? Azdarel taught the course of the moon, as well as the deception of man. And man is still following the moon in deception, even now today, in large part. Verse 4, and the people cried, and their voice reached unto heaven. You know, but how are they ever going to get right if they can't, you know, if the truth wasn't revealed to them?
Right.
You know, this is why Yah has revealed these things so that people can know. Witchcraft, sorcery, and divinations. Again, Enoch 7, 1 through 6. And they took wives unto themselves, and everyone respectively chose one woman for himself. And they began to go unto them, and they taught them magical medicine, incantations, the cutting of roots, and taught them about plants. And the women became pregnant and gave birth to great giants. Where did we hear that before? Whose heights were 300 cubits. These giants consumed the produce. Now, I want you to get this, because there's much evidence in the earth that this actually happened. These giants consumed the produce of all the people until the people detested feeding them. So the giants turned against the people in order to eat them. And you'll find many ancient writings of different civilizations who taught about these giants that was in the land that were cannibals, that were eating people. You know, and the thing is, they were recognized in the land as gods, and so they were worshipped, and this is why they would come and feed the giants. They would offer sacrifices unto them. But then they got tired of it, because the giants were greedy. Because they were big and hungry. And you know, and so when they stopped offering sacrifices, the giants started eating them. Verse 5, and they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish. And their flesh was devoured the one by the other, and they drank blood. They began to not only to eat people, they began to eat one another. And, you know, it says they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish. And you see in Greek mythology, you see all these strange beings that they call gods. Amen.
Right.
And you wonder where they came from. Like the Sagittarius, half horse, half man. You know, all that aligns right along with this. Does it not? You know, and it says in verse 6, and the earth brought an accusation against the oppressors. The people began to cry out to Yah. They began to pray because of the injustice that was being perpetrated upon them by the giants. Okay, that's all with column 1. And Oh man, I thought we was gonna get to go through column 2, and thought we was gonna get to the end of Lamech today, but maybe we better stop here. All right, we'll stop here. That's all I have for you today. Pray it was a blessing.